In JavaScript, you can handle events in one of two possible ways. First, we can use event handlers. Second, we can use event listeners. So to use an event handler, we can use one of the event handler properties of an object. Alright, let's look at the example of using onClick event. First of all, we need to create a button and then class btn button, and next switch to the index.js file. So we're gonna create a button variable and use document.query selector to get the class of the button. So we're gonna get class.btn. Okay, next we're gonna use the button variable, and then we're gonna use the onClick event handler, and we're gonna return console.log button clicked. Alright, hit save. Next, let's click the button. So right here, the onClick event handler is triggered when a user clicks on a button. As a result, button click right there is output into the console. So in the next example, we're gonna use event listeners. The other option to handling events is by using event listeners. An event listener is something you assign to an object. As the name suggests, the event listener listens for events and gets triggered when an event occurs. Okay, let's repeat the previous example by assigning an event listener to a button to listen for clicks. Alright, we're gonna change onClicked to add event listener, and then we're gonna change our code here for listen to click event and return. Alright, and refresh the page. So let's click on the button. Now, clicking the button triggers a click event, which in turn runs a block of code, which outputs button clicked to the console right there. The minor difference between event handlers and event listeners is easy to understand. You can only have one event handler for a specific event type, but you can add multiple event listeners for it. Okay, let's see what happens if you try to add two onClick event handlers to the same object. We're gonna comment this code and then copy. So I'm gonna change this to onClick, return console.log first event handler, and copy this is second event handler. Alright, hit save, and then you click the button. So right there, as an object can only have one event handler for each event type, the first onClick handler gets overridden by the second. This results as you can see in the console here. Alright, let's repeat this experiment by using two click event listeners. We're gonna comment this code and uncomment this. So copy, and we're gonna change to first button click and second button clicked, and then refresh the page and hit the button. As you can see in the console, it is okay to have multiple event listeners of the same event per object. Thus, both of the listeners are triggered once a button is clicked. I believe right now a lot of you guys have wondered which should I use. Generally, it is advised to use event listeners over event handlers because you can add multiple event listeners for the same event. Conclusion: event listeners and event handlers are used to handle events, such as button clicks on your page. There's a subtle difference between event listeners and event handlers. An object can only have one event handler for a specific event, but it can have multiple event listeners for the event. When in doubt, prefer event listeners over event handlers.